calls. Hi, everyone. Morning. Sit down and if Mike is here, if I could ask him to mute everybody. Okay. All right, so I'd like to talk to you this morning. Settle down. The title of the talk is You Must Remember This. It's about Jewish contributions to the film Casablanca from 1943. And I style it as a production in 4 acts and an epilogue. So as I've just asked, we can hold spoken questions chat window, so you can put comments and things in that. I'm not going to be able to read it, but maybe we can harvest from that at the end. You know, if you have an idea and you want to put it down, get it in. So I'll begin by talking about the background, which means the background of the film, but also obviously the historical background of World War II in Europe. The second bit is sort of the overall Jewish essence of the production, which means, you know, producer, etc. I wanted to talk about those roles. And time this, so I'm a good idea of how much I'm doing. The real meat in this is Act 3 and Act 4, which are about the refugees in the film. That is, actors that were themselves refugees of Hitler's Europe, but also portrayed refugees. Nearly all of them Jewish. There's an important actor who's not Jewish, but whose wife is Jewish. And that just gave Germany. And then I'll reflect a little bit on what happened to those actors after the film ended, and about the overall legacy of Casablanca in the historical context. So to begin with, here's the first test to see whether these clips will work. I'm going to show you an extended clip, which has the theme song, as time goes by, whose first 4 words are, "You must remember this." This is an interesting clip because it's, you know, it was produced after the film, so it's a bit of a montage, mostly silent, but it also gives you a sense of that. And I realized I neglected to mention that a very important actor in this film was the African-American Dooley Wilson, who's featured here. He was a piano player, and without him, you can't have the film. He wasn't Jewish. Good.
Play it once.
Okay.
I don't know what you mean, myself. Play. Time goes by. Oh, I can't remember myself. I'm a little rusty. I'll play it for you.
Must remember this. A kiss till I feel a sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things of life as time goes by. And when two lovers woo, they still stay out of all that you can rely. No matter what the future brings, time goes by.
Hopefully give you an appetite for later things. Yeah. We'll put the slides up. You'll see that each one has a link at the bottom if you don't get the audio to work. But we styled this. Mike has helped me in the past on this. First on my talk on Janet Yellen as a Jewish New Yorker, that he told me that you don't put YouTube, try not to embed YouTubes into PowerPoints, just because that link to the internet may not work during your talk. So Mike has a way of downloading them as files, MP4 type files, so then they can be put permanently into the PowerPoint, so you don't have to worry about connecting. You face various issues of these clips anyway. Sorry that they're short, but you literally can't copy more than a minute for legal reasons, just like my kids are both musicians. You can't sample more than 7 seconds of a song, otherwise you'll hit copyright issues. A minute is certainly better than 7 seconds, still.
So, Jonathan, just speak as close to the microphone as you can, and as firmly.
Loud? Want me to talk loud? Yeah, I can't do it. I don't do that though. Okay.
Yeah, it's for the folks on Zoom.
Okay. Yeah, so here you'll see there's a timeline and a film summary. But first, Casablanca is a 1943 film about the plight of refugees from Nazi Germany. Casablanca, I'll give a graphic on why it was important, but for now, let's say it's on the Atlantic coast of Morocco, which at that point was owned by the French, and it is the largest city in Morocco. The time setting is 1940, mostly, except for a flashback, after the fall of Paris to the Germans, to the Wehrmacht. So the Germans are controlling the northern part of Germany, of France, for most of this film. Now, why Casablanca? So this is mentioned in the film, but I thought it would be fun to just do this as I like graphical representations.
Talking to Mike.
Sorry, I'm standing back so that I can see the slides. I'll look here, I won't look there. So, as you can see, in peacetime, had Germany not occupied northern France, the way to get to the New World, such as New York, would be to go to Lisbon and then to get a flight to New York, or London, but to get out of the business. That was, however, impossible. Franco wouldn't let you into Spain, and the Germans controlled France. So they did this, 4 or 5 step thing. They would have to take a train to Marseille in the south of France, a boat to Algeria, the town of Oran, and then across the desert to Morocco. So the film takes place in Casablanca, Morocco, and people are basically waiting there to see if they can get a flight to Lisbon to get out of Lisbon. And that's to a little bit of back. It actually came from not
Go ahead.
Okay. No, that's fine. I think I covered most of this. There's a microcosm, macrocosm here too. Obviously,
Microphone.
oops, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Just come on back.
back to the mic. Okay. So I covered everything in the table. At the bottom, I'm just going to say that there's the war. That's the big picture, or microcosm. And there's the romance, which is a love triangle. And the tears at your heartstrings. Obviously a wartime romance. I should say my 2 favorite films are Casablanca and Dr. Zhivago, both of which take place in the backdrop of European wars in the 20th century. So, you know, this is maybe more for the historians. It's a 3-column table, 4-column table. The years that something happens on the left. Something else.
We got to get the Zoom presented. Everybody, your patience is so appreciated.
3-column table. The war in Europe. What happened? 3rd column, and the 4th column is things that actually happened in the film as the fall of Paris. So I'll go through that in a moment. It'll take you once again back to Max. Max is source. So you can consume Max through Hulu or through Prime Video. So, what else do you want to know the film? Oh, so coming attractions, you'll see there's a Red Sox connection here. You'll see, unfortunately, that the Nazi commander did not live very much after the film was released. He went on the golf course in 1943 and had a massive heart attack. Now, he didn't take care of himself. He was a heavy drinker. Well, he was an alcoholic, I think, and had a family lunch. The interesting thing, are we okay?
We should be for the moment.
Okay.
Just keep going and try.
Yeah. This was a challenge. I asked him to interrupt me as many times as possible. I'm the pitcher, he's the batter, he's frustrating. So let me just focus on the production events then. So in 1938, When It Comes to Ricks was written as a stage play and meant to be shown on Broadway and was completed. Unfortunately, it was never produced on Broadway. There's some theories about that. The most important prop in the film is 2 letters of transit, which are signed by General de Gaulle. And they give people, the tough thing is getting out of Casablanca once you're there. So these letters of transit are like gold. If you have those, you can exit and go to Portugal into the New World. And there's a very important sequence at the beginning with Peter Lorre, who has come into these 2 letters of transit. I'm not going to have that scene here, but essentially, you know, it's just 2 people. So then you start to think 2 people, how is that going to come into this triangle romance? Anyway, so, but the film was never produced. And so Hollywood bought the rights to the film. This is, Mike, is there a way, it's kind of cutting off on the left.
You zoomed in. Yeah, zoom it out. Yeah, and then go backwards.
Okay.
Well, that's.
So the film was basically, it was filmed between 41 and 42, produced, I think it's probably a feature.
No, it's not, shouldn't be doing.
The film was released initially to a small audience in 42, formally introduced in January 43. By that time, as you'll see on the slides, the U.S. has entered the war. They entered in 41, but it really didn't have troops in Europe until 43 or 44. In 43, Italy was liberated, for example, by Italian troops. And in 44, we know D-Day happened. And obviously the English and U.S. allies liberated France, began the liberation of France. The last line on that table was the 3 countries, the armistice, not the armistice, the surrender of Germany and the suicide of Hitler.
You know what, Jonathan, I think I'm going to switch to the other laptop just because of the issues that we're having. So if you can give me 2 minutes just to swap.
Yep.
Everything talk among yourselves.
Are there any questions while we're, yeah, so you don't need to hold this, yeah, go ahead.
Well, obviously, this is not filmed anywhere in Europe at the time.
Right, where was it filmed? That's a good question. Yeah, because you have desert scenes, probably Arizona.
Yeah.
I don't know where this, but a lot of it was Hollywood backlots, yeah.
Yes.
Now, there is some trivia that I didn't do in this. For example, this character, Blaine, may have been modeled, another Jewish angle, after a kind of shady character. The nightclub owner, Rachel Club in 38, where there were refugees already from Nazi Germany trying to get out. And there was a piano player at the club. So the play is, something that was, I think it was Allison and somebody else. And the original name was Everybody Comes to Rick's. What I started to say before, I'll say now, is that the original character of Ilsa, played by Ingrid Bergman,
and camp, so
Very briefly, I.
Right. Yeah, it's first did they mention concentration camps and then did they mention, communities. I should say that I visited, Auschwitz when I was in Prague. And when you first get to Auschwitz in the famous Arbach Fry, everything you see is the political prisoner part of the concentration camp, the main camp. And the Jews, you have to walk to it, but you can walk to the areas where, that was called Auschwitz-Birkenau. And that's where the Jews were, and that's where the crematoria and the barracks and everything like that are. Again, this new film, A Real Pain, goes to Majdanek, which, the Germans abandoned. So one of the things about that camp, it's a little bit, they show you what it actually really looked like. The Nazis didn't have time to burn it down. So, but, yeah, the idea of concentration camp. The other historical, if you know, I deal with London a lot, I think about the UK a lot and our similarities. So Olivier puts out the adaptation of the Shakespeare play Henry V around the same time. And of course, England knew a lot more. They entered the war, as I showed in my chart, in 39, when Hitler entered Czechoslovakia. They entered France into the war. So that was more, it wasn't about Jews, but it was about rallying people for a fight, for a good fight. And so that was regarded as sort of not a propaganda film, but the way in which he uses Henry V, which is a war, it's a European war, it's a war against the Agincourt battle was against all the battles against the French.
So close. We've got everybody back online. We've got, there we go, PowerPoint.
There's a square that I should mention. So when Germany goes into France, the southern part of it is free in some sense. They call it a rump government. We would call it a puppet government. Started in 40. And quite a lot of dialogue in the film is about the French. So Casablanca was controlled by the Vichy government. So controlled by the French, well, I mean, the Germans just put a government there of stooges, you know, that they could tell them what to do. But they made it sound like that they hadn't taken the whole country.
John, do you want me to run the slides and you just talk to the microphone? Or do you want to come back?
I can come back.
Okay.
Did I screw something up before?
No, it just, the laptop was being so finicky.
Okay,
I think you're all right. Just forward and back and,
okay. Now we have to believe, now we just have to hope that the clips work.
yeah, I think they will, but we'll see.
Okay, so yeah, so I think I've said most of this. The war ending with the Hitler suicide. We had a president-elect who said that Hitler did good things. Someone said, well, he did one thing, he killed himself. So, I want to start first with a little more of the history. There's his name. So it's Murray Bennett. I covered this already. And it's his experience in a town in the south of France with a bar, loved like bricks. I mentioned this before, but these letters of transit are these golden documents. And then I mentioned the lowest being Ilsa. The thing at the bottom, you know, essentially the play wasn't produced, but they made a lot of money selling the rights to Warner. It would be almost $500,000 now with inflation. All right, now the screenwriters were mostly Jewish as well. There were three of them. The notable one are these two brothers, Julius and Philip Epstein, no relation to the bad Epstein, but a relation to Theo Epstein, who allowed the Red Sox to win after the 1918 thing. So he's the grandson and grandnephew of the two Julius, the two Epstein. They're from the Lower East Side, and they wrote most of it. Howard Koch, who's from upstate, wrote the political scenes, and he was the only one on the set when it was being produced. But you know, rack up another Jew. I put Jew in light blue when I have the word Jew or Jewish. So the guy rise. As far as the senior management of the film, so the director and the producer, you can see that their names in Europe were Mihaly Kertész, which became Michael Curtis, and Aaron Wolowich. I don't know how you get Hal Wallace out of that, but anyway, they were you know, incredible. Curtis went on to, if you look at his career, over 100 films. The cinematography, the three guys at the bottom are not Jews. Mike, sorry. It's in a, power conserving mode.
It's the screen is gone dark.
This is
Everything we can.
Can I give a talk with 100 things going wrong? If you're keeping track, I think we're up to about 99.
Mike's signing his money today.
Right.
Doing the best we can.
It's not part of their case.
I've had absolutely no problem ever giving a talk before Brotherhood before, so I'm glad that we advertise this heavily so everybody can think that this happens to be all.
Well, did you see a message on the screen before I went dark?
I would have, the screen is dark. Yeah, so Laurie was Jewish. I'm gonna talk about him in a minute. He has this role that's kind of, maybe kind of shocky, maybe kind of, not kind of, he's like a wheeler dealer. And he gets the letters of transit from these German cars I think about, but that the most important thing for him is money. It's just getting money and his own thing. So he's a great part. Sidney Greenstreet, who I don't mention in here, is also a great part here. He owns a competing club to Rick. And when Rick leaves Casablanca, or is thinking of leaving Casablanca, he sells his club to Sidney Greenstreet. I know we got the background. But Greenstreet and Laurie would go on to appear another picture with Bogart. Any other questions? Well,
Yeah, one more. Did the fact that most of the studio heads at the time were Jews have any influence on this in any way?
I think, yeah, I didn't talk about, that was
One
actually,
of Goldwyn, Mayer, well,
right. Yeah, the book club, Synagogue Book Club at some point did a story on how many of the producers were also refugees, the ones that started, not started the Hollywood studios all the time, like Paramount was not started, but it was taken over by
they,
located probably.
they were from
Right. So Fox certainly, and many people like Berlin were able to make it entertainment. I don't know that much about how much the owners of the studio get involved in the films. I guess ultimately they decide how much money and things like that. And maybe also supporting picture, I don't know what the distribution model is.
I'm gonna run and see if we can move to the function room, to the community room, based
Okay.
on the number of people we have, because it looks like the projector is actually giving up the ghost.
Okay.
So you can see the slide. You can do these.
Yeah, well, we'll just,
If they're hearing it on Zoom, can we alert them that we're?
They could be hearing it.
but yeah, definitely, maybe a little long. Other questions or I can page to the slides while I talk about it. Chuck. Yeah, use it. I couldn't possibly get every clip, so I could tell you what some of my favorite clips are. You can see with this probably still works, right? This probably. So I can talk over it. So one of the nice themes is when the question is, why did he end up? In fact, he says to, flood rates, prefect of police says to Bogart, Rick Lane, why are we here? And Rick essentially says, I came here for the waters. And he says, waters? Casablanca's in the middle of the desert. Bogart looks at the camera and says, I was misinformed. That's a good. As is one that I begin a clip about what the Nazis would think about if, how people would react when they say that, when they invade, when they take over London, when they take over New York. So I'll say that when we have a word of retreat. But just before that, they're sitting and the Nazi commander says to Red, what nationality are you? And Bogart famously says, I'm a drunkard.
Good statement.
To which I'm a drunkard, to which Rain says, then you're a citizen of the world.
We're gonna set up with the little screen.
Okay. The, I was also struck by watching it the other night that many of the big characters, the smaller parts here, are in the first few minutes. I think that may reflect that it was a stage play, and I think that's what you do more or less. You're kind of, your prologue, you're introducing a lot of smaller people to give it the context. And then you don't have the main character come on stage because of their importance to the plot until sometime after the first few scenes. And then their entrance is something that's not complicated by all these smaller parts. So for example, the lady selling diamonds is in that scene, a pickpocket is in a couple of, these are a couple of roles that I'll introduce once I get my presentation.
I didn't find the power button. This is the last hurdle. Finding the switch.
Up top.
Yeah, you think. Oh, it's on the side. Yay. Fingers crossed. That's the Polaroid logo. Don't get so excited.
Okay, and you have someone in the someone's hairdo is what's gonna come up.
No, we're sharing with sound. There we go. Can everybody see? You want to move forward?
I can't see it, but
You can see here.
Yeah. Okay. I think I covered most of this. I see Viennese Jew at the bottom there is not in blue, it's in yellow. Well, you know, yellow and blue look good together. But Max Steiner, I mean, some of these people are just stellar representatives of Hollywood. They have some of the best and brightest. I referred to Peter Lorre a few minutes ago as far as his role in the film. He actually had a rough audition with Hitchcock. You know, sorry, question.
Yes, but how would anybody play?
Okay, yeah, I think I could do it. He was born Laszlo Lowenstein, Slovakian Jew, and one of his first auditions for European film was in London with Hitchcock, and he knew so little English at the time. Hitchcock was talking to him about a horror movie and certain ways that he wanted it to act, and Laurie just kept laughing at everything that Hitchcock said because he couldn't understand what Hitchcock was saying. So he sort of got a reputation very early as, this guy is a little weird. I mentioned the letters of transit. He's later killed for possessing them, but not before he gives these magical letters of transit to Rick. This is a compilation to quote at the bottom about just how he's this wormy little character, but somehow he likes Rick because Rick despises him.
Is what?
I'm sorry.
You call Rick is what?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The music is pretty loud up there. So sorry.
Yeah, because talking to the mic, you can't hear you.
I am talking to the mic. I didn't realize I had to be a half inch.
No, we can be 2 inches.
Yeah.
I don't think so, because this is.
That's great, that's good.
Yeah, so basically, but I'm just saying it's at the bottom of the screen, so I don't really need to read it. Victor Laszlo is from a family that his father was born Jewish, but because of anti-Semitism, converted to Catholicism. So he plays the lead resistance leader. And there's a great line at the bottom, I will read that. Don't you sometimes wonder if it's worth all this, Rick says to him, the resistance leader. I mean, what you're fighting for. And Victor says, basically, it's like breathing. If I stop doing this, then I'll die. If a person stops, that his resistance to the Nazis is that important. Really like. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have with my little curtain meme here, I'm going to introduce the refugees. This is the one non-Jewish refugee, but has a Jewish connection. And so this is Conrad Veidt, who is a well-known German actor and the highest paid actor in the film, more than Bogart, for instance. He is a German by birth, but fiercely anti-Nazi, and had a Jewish wife. His, I think, third wife was Jewish and had to escape Europe. So here's the scene that I referred to before. We'll see what the clips were about where Bogart is going to meet the Nazi commander. Conrad White.
I was born in New York City, if that'll help you any.
I understand that you came here from Paris at the time of the occupation.
There seems to be no secret about that.
Are you one of those people who cannot imagine the Germans and their beloved Paris?
It's not particularly my beloved Paris.
Can you imagine us in London?
When you get there, ask me.
Diplomatist. How about New York?
Well, there are certain sections of New York, Major, that I wouldn't advise you to try to invade.
This is the beginning of a sequence that next we'll see. I'm doing it actor by actor. German singing at the piano, singing German songs, and then a real denouement. But I'll prepare you for that. Madeline LeBeau, also again in her 20s, is Yvonne, and that's Rick's former girlfriend in the film. She was French Jewish, so later when we see her singing the Marseillaise, she didn't need any salt water or whatever, glycerin tears. Those are real tears. She says "Vive la France" at the end of the clip. And she's the wife of Marcel Dahlia, who was Emile, we'll introduce. So here's the famous La Marseillaise clip. Hopefully it's loud enough. So this sets up then a chain of events. So what you saw in that scene is Paul Henry, the Czech resistance leader against the Nazis and married to Ingrid Bergman. I think Ingrid at this moment, being so fed up with the Germans just sitting around singing German songs, singing songs. I'm explaining what's happening in the scene already, so hopefully you don't need to hear every word. And then the Vive la France, the Marseillaise being played. So the immediate reaction, as you might expect, of the Nazis to this, especially Major Schachter, is negative. If you recall, what happened is great, otherwise you can see it happening. But the Germans decide to close down the club because with Victor Laszlo, this Czech guy, if he can do something like that, it's not safe. It's not good for the Nazis. We'll get to that in a minute. I want to step back to Marcel. No, we'll have it in this clip. So Marcel Dahlia, as I said, is the husband in real life, Madeline LeBeau, the one who's crying during the Marseillaise, and was a Romanian Jew, again, born with a Jewish sounding name. This is the famous, "I'm shocked, shocked." But that statement comes out when you'll see the Nazi commander says you have to close down Rick's.
You see what I mean? If Laszlo's presence in a cafe can inspire this unfortunate demonstration, what more will his presence in Casablanca bring on? I advise that this place be shut up at once.
But everybody's having such a good time.
Yes, much too good a time. The place is to be closed.
But I've no excuse to close it.
Find one.
Everybody is to leave here immediately. This cafe is closed until further notice. Clear the room at once.
How can he close me up? On what ground?
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
So the irony of the police chief being part of it. And that, at the end, that was Emile, the croupier, the husband of Madeline LeBeau, that I'll show in a later scene with another Jewish actor. So at that point in the film, now it's closed for the club. Let me mention grandfatherly type as the soccer. He has the two Hungarian words meaning golden beard, blonde beard. His original name was Jake Grunwald. He's the head waiter in the film. He has more screen time than everyone else in the film. He doesn't have the most lines by any means, but he's there. You'll see him in at least one more scene. And then, let's see, go backwards. Yeah. So here's the right way. There's a cute little scene where Mr. and Mrs. Or Herr and Frau Schachter are German Jews and they're leaving Casablanca and they want to practice English before the waiter. So they sit there, they have a drink together, and then Mr. Leukert says, Liebchen, honey, sweetness, what watch? And she says, 10 watch. And he says, such watch. So broken English. And Carl says, you're going to get along great in America with English like that. Leonard Kinsky is a Russian Jew who fled Europe because of the Communist Revolution. He actually lived till 98. He lived a long life in New York in 98. But he is a Russian bartender. He's a Russian playing Russian. In this particular scene, this is not a clip. I couldn't find, because copyright, I couldn't get it. But here's a screenshot where Yvonne, who you remember is Rick's spurred lover, wants to get drunk because Rick won't pay attention to her. She wants to be taken out of her misery. And Sasha famously says, I love you, Yvonne, but he pays me. This is Bogart right here, right? Another character I want to highlight is Helmut Dantine, who's the roulette player who Rick allows to win. If you didn't remember the scene, I'm going to run it in a minute. He's a Viennese Jew who actually was in a concentration camp, but it was 38. And so this was the time that actually you could buy your way out of. His parents put money together in order to bribe people to get him out of the camp, and he ended up in California. So here's a roulette scene clip. This is kind of a sentimental scene, which begins with a young woman named, but she's the one married to the Helmut Dantine character. And their way out of Casablanca is to bribe the Claude Rains character, the chief of police. Again, what really is going on. The prefect wants to sleep with a young lady, and if she'll do that, then but fortunately the film evolves in a slightly different way. It's because they don't have the money, and she really wants to get out. So. See, Mike, this is very good.
Problems. Yours may work out, you'll excuse me.
Unfortunately, not much to do about it.
Okay, well, a lot of this is visual. It's about being in front of a roulette table. At this point, you can see again the croupier is there. Bogart is walking over to the table. And then you'll see the young man, Helmut Dantine, is right there. He's looking depressed. He really wants to get his money out of gambling to be able to buy the tickets, but he can't. So Bogart at this point is saying to him, put your money on the number 22. Then he looks at the croupier and says 22.
Marquons les jeux, mesdames et messieurs, les jeux sont faits, la partie continue. Marquons les jeux. Fini.
And amazingly, because Rick is the owner of the casino, the number 22 comes up. So there's a huge pile of cash that is down up here. And then Rick says, keep it. Let it go.
Mesdames et messieurs, les jeux sont faits. Marquons les jeux, la partie continue. Marquons les jeux sont faits.
And again, magically, it's 22.
22,
So now it says to take your money and give that
Rien ne va
money.
plus, monsieur.
So now he has to money to be able to do that. And the rest of the scene here is about Carl the waiter there. This is really honest claw.
Rien ne
It's
va plus.
not.
How are we doing tonight?
Voilà.
The croupier is saying,
And I thought they would.
just lost a few thousand.
Rien ne va
Realize
plus.
that.
34 rouges.
The young lady giving him an break.
Marque pour les jeux, mesdames et messieurs. Les jeux sont
Just a
faits.
lucky guy.
Partie continue.
And then Carl, the waiter,
Marquons les jeux.
wanting to buy coffee or drink, get coffee or drink, because he's decision was, now this is really the turning point of the film. This is where Rick becomes not just a drug dealer and not caring about anything. Now he really is caring. Right? He has a letter to well, but you know, it's the protagonist in the dramatic production, someone who changes during the production. So this is when we see that Rick is changing perhaps. Here, Carl is explaining to the bartender, Sasha, what he did. The bartender, the grateful public says you're a crazy Russian. Just lingered over the scene. And now here are two small parts, and then we'll go to the aftermath of the film. I don't have that much left, maybe another 10 or 15. I'll try to speed it up. So Kurt Block is a pickpocket. Again, it's kind of a changing of the name. His first name, his original birth name was Kurt Boas. So, you know, if you put an I in there, it becomes Block. And he had also fled to the U.S. well before, I think 34 maybe, at least before Hitler was really supercharged, but he felt that the periodic anti-Semitism in Europe was not good for him. He also lived a very long life. And finally, another lady in the cast is Bloody Palfion. It's sort of hard to figure out the story. There's no wiki page in English. The only wiki page is in German. But she is a woman selling diamonds in the first couple of minutes of the film, and fled to the U.S. That says, you know, that's the film. Now let's focus a little bit more on what happened to the refugees after the film ended. The most tragic is Major Strasser, who was played by Conrad Veidt, who died, you know, after the film had only been out for 3 months. And again, that was that he had bad health conditions and didn't take care of himself. That's probably. However, his legacy is still preserved. I don't know how well you know the Bay Area. UC Berkeley is obviously an intellectual institution. I'm a Berkeley guy, I'm a Stanford guy. So Berkeley has a Pacific Film Archive, which contains a lot of the effects of films that were made in the 20th century. And so his family donated his effects and all of his things to the PFA, Pacific Film Archive. And there is a nonprofit society. So he died at age 50. Which is really, you know, it's an important role. It's not the kind of role that it's not a warm and fuzzy role. He has to play someone. And again, ironically, he was extremely anti-Nazi, although born German. And again, fled to the U.S. because of his wife, who's German. Wasn't Jewish. Yvonne LeBeau, a woman who's crying tears, actually was divorced by the croupier, Marcel Dahlia, during the filming. He's a bit of a sleaze bag. He's the next slide, so you can get all your sleeves out there. But she did appear in Fellini's film 8.5 later. So, you know, she definitely, this was kind of a launching of her career in film. Emil, okay, so the sad thing is that he's the only survivor in this film. Everyone else, remember, he's a Romanian Jew, everybody else died in the camps. And it was in 2 French films, Grand Illusion and The Rules of the Game. He was, however, 25 years older than Madame LeBeau when he married. And that was his second. His first one had been divorced. So did his second. He literally filed for divorce on the day that she was acting in a scene for the film. So I would say that's a bit of a sleaze. Sokol is this great old grandfatherly character. And as I said, there's a lot of screen time. And later appeared in a number of B movies. That's the only guy. Sasha, bartender, ends up being in a lot of 50s, 60s, and 70s American TV. He actually had a tryout for Heroes, but as a Jew from Germany, from Europe, he didn't really feel comfortable, acting with play Nazis. That was not a thing. And Helmut on TV, another kind of difficult man. He then played Nazis in later films and got into trouble. If you see the last, at a New Year's Eve party, he bit off the ear of Ida Lupino's sister. So it's kind of like a Jewish. Yeah, well, Vincent Van Gogh, biting the ear. I don't think he did it completely off. Courtois returned to German film. Wings of Desire came out in the 80s. I think some of us have seen that, the Wim Wenders film. He has a snowman. And Lottie Paul Theodore, the most ironic thing about her from the standpoint of history is she acted in another film, filmed on West 47th Street about the diamond industry. Okay, so then what can we say about the film's impact on history of film and culture, and what in detail, how does the film end to kind of give a wrap? So here's some notes from EmmanuelLevy.com. I'm sure there's other historians, but I thought these points were interesting. He makes 3 points. First of all, that this really establishes Bogart. He had played it, as it says, he had had a decade of servitude, so I suppose that means minor roles with few lines. So this was really a star feature that made him into a star, and a very popular. From the standpoint of what does the film say about him? This writer calls him a rebel hero. I would say he's almost an anti-hero at the beginning of it. He's given up, but somehow is it the former love coming into his life, or is it sympathy, or the changing attitudes? Anyway, he becomes a rebel hero. And this writer claims that this is a waking up for Americans. I don't know how you prove something like that, but we had a little discussion of that before. How does the film end? Well, it's on an airfield. And so Rick now has the letters of transit. And at the point when you think he's going to run away with Ilsa, his former lover, with those 2 letters, and leave the Czech resistance leader, on the tarmac, he gives the letters to Beth, to her and Lawson. And she is torn. She wants to be with him as she was in Paris. So he said, well, we'll always have that as a memory. But, I guess he feels that Laszlo is so important to the war, the resistance, that he's more important. But he'll fend for himself, right? But he needs to get lots of New York to the U.S. so he can continue to. Laszlo was impressed and says, essentially, welcome back. That now I know our side will win. This is a turning point. But the last action that you see in the second to last action is the plane takes off. The Nazi commander tries to come out and stop the plane, and Rick shoots him. So at that point, the change is complete. That Rick is now definitely on the side of the resistance. And so the very last scene is he and Louis, who's the chief of police, played by Claude Rains, says, we're going to be careful now. We're going to have to stay together. And we just shot the Nazi commander. So the prefect of police is essentially saying, we can take care of each other. And so the last line is, this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Mike, sorry, for the Zoom, should we have a mic go around the room?
We had that thing. So,
Right.
That'll help for everybody else.
Is it on?
It's on now. No, here, you see.
I saw a red light and I saw nothing, so I don't know how to switch.
I don't remember, did last one know about Rick and Ilsa?
Yeah, so the question is maybe how much did Rick know about Laszlo and how much,
How much did Laszlo know about Rick and Ilsa?
right, right. But one could also ask how much did Rick know about Laszlo? Both of them are so Rick and Laszlo are both to some extent in what we call information asymmetry on Wall Street, that they don't know 100% about the other person. Rick, for instance, the relationship that he has with Ilsa in Paris is because she assumes her husband is dead.
Right.
So she's not really having an affair. She perceives herself as a widow. And when they're about to leave Paris, the two of them, Bogart, Rick and Ilsa, suddenly word comes that he's alive. So she wants to go back to him. The references to what happened back then, we never know exactly what he told her, what she told him.
Yeah, so we don't know.
But in fact, she keeps her marriage a secret through most of the film. But Bogart does say at some point, when Laszlo pleads with him for the letters of transit, go ask your wife. And Laszlo doesn't know what that means, but maybe in the play it was called out later. But he does say, he does disclose to Laszlo at the airport that your wife came to me last night asking for the letters of transit. So again, that's the scene which before might have been, a sexual scene, maybe in the play, but that's the only, she comes the night before, he refuses, but he said something up. He says to let Laszlo be free, the Germans, so he said, Rick ends up engineering their own escape. Wait for the minute.
I think you did a pretty good job in getting all the characters. Showing how they be in the film. To quote from near the end of the film, you rounded up the usual suspects.
That's right. That's specifically when Major Strasser shot. Because he could put Rick under arrest, but instead he says, round up the usual suspects. Round up the usual.
I have a question. John, first of all, I apologize to you and everybody else for technical difficulties, and thank you for persevering through. I think this is probably the most separate individual issues we've had in a presentation. When did you first become aware of Casablanca as a cultural artifact, and what created your intense interest and affection for the film?
I think, like a lot of things, my interest is probably picked up in what they call like a driveway moment, listening to NPR or something like that. Maybe probably Fresh Air or something like that. Maybe somebody had come out with a book. There are a number of websites and books about what's happened to the characters. Hogan's Heroes, I mentioned, also had a number of Jewish refugees in there. But when did I first learn about Casablanca? I probably saw it in high school. So it's just one of those films, especially the beautiful, I mean, Ingrid Bergman, but it's visually, it's pictorially, I think, beautiful in a lot of ways, especially the way that whatever they did, they had to smear Vaseline on the lens. I mean, she really looks beautiful.
I'm a paper bank. Jonathan, he was just fantastic. It's a lot of hard work. The slides were wonderful. People were really got a lot out of this. Mike, I don't know what we would do without you. whether it's here or in Temple, without your technical knowledge, we really be in trouble. You were just amazing. That's all I apologize. And I really have to thank everybody here. The tenor is wonderful. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation as much as I did, and learned as much as I did. Now we can all go back and watch the film again, right? And thank you so much. Be well, please.
Yeah.
Our fearless leader of the great meeting again. Thank you. All right, well, I'm here if people want to just shout or whatever. It's no problem.
Sing.
Yes.
Singing the big singing.
Yeah.
You going, Mike? No, I heard you speak. What?